The public is being conditioned to watch the skies for incoming missiles. This is a strategic misdirection. While legacy media focuses on the kinetic cost of a visible war, as detailed in assessments from the Institute for the Study of War, the primary vector of attack is not kinetic. It is silent. The entire architecture of Western solvency, trillions in daily financial transactions, secure military communications, the very command structure of NATO, does not travel through the air. Over 95% of global data runs through a network of undersea fiber optic cables. This is the system's central nervous system. Analysts at CSIS have issued explicit warnings. Adversary naval doctrine has been re-engineered for this specific purpose. Specialized submersibles, often designated as research vessels on public trackers, have been systematically mapping and accessing these critical nodes. This is not scientific exploration. It is the preparation of the battle space. Simultaneously, reports from RUSI detail the maturation of adversary capabilities in satellite blinding and spoofing. The objective is to sever both terrestrial and orbital communications in a coordinated, systemic strike. The goal is not destruction, it is isolation. This is the protocol for creating a blind Leviathan, a superpower stripped of its nervous system. Without real-time satellite data and secure comms, a carrier strike group becomes a multi-billion-dollar liability. Strategic command loses positive control. The system defaults to a launch-on-warning posture, but with its eyes and ears gone, the threshold for that decision paradoxically lowers. It is a mathematical certainty. The motive is not strength. It is a mathematical function of failure. For Russia, the kinetic war is no longer a strategic asset. According to analysis from RUSI, the protracted conflict has become a severe domestic liability, an unpopular black hole for capital and manpower. Moscow is facing its own solvency crisis. It is losing a war of attrition it cannot afford to wage symmetrically. The immense kinetic cost, as documented by assessments from the Institute for the Study of War, has depleted its capacity for a conventional victory. When a state's balance sheet for conventional war turns negative, it does not capitulate. It pivots. It is forced to shift from symmetric, kinetic attrition to asymmetric economic warfare. Weakness is the accelerant for this change in strategy. This is not a choice. It is a protocol triggered by impending systemic failure. The objective becomes ruthlessly simple. If you cannot defeat your enemy's army, you bankrupt the treasury that funds it. The blueprint is to export your own solvency crisis to your adversary. This is the pivot, to weaponize their own military failure into a direct, asymmetric attack on Western financial stability. The central mechanism is a brutal, mathematical asymmetry in kinetic cost. According to analysis from the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, a modern main battle tank costs approximately $5 million. The first-person view drone that can achieve a mission, kill against it, costs $500. This is a 10,000 to 1 cost disparity. It renders the entire Western doctrine of technological overmatch fiscally obsolete. For every high-value asset we deploy, an adversary can field 10,000 disposable threats. This is not a war of maneuver. It is a balance sheet, war of attrition. The kinetic attrition, detailed in ISW assessments, source number 1, is designed to bankrupt, not conquer. Strategic analysts label this the democratization of violence. The state's monopoly on projecting lethal force is broken. The barrier to entry is no longer a billion-dollar weapons program. It is a credit card. Our defense industrial complex is engineered to produce the $5 million asset. It is structurally incapable of countering the $500 liability at scale. The adversary is not attacking our military. It is attacking its business model. The primary attack surface is not a traditional battlefield. It is a network of engineered gray zones, designated proxy laboratories for testing systemic stress. These are not the cause of the conflict. They are the staging areas. Here, adversaries calibrate economic and social levers with plausible deniability before deploying them against the core architecture of the West. CSIS reports on emergent instability in key Western resource partners, from South Africa's logistical grid to Canada's internal political fractures, are not isolated bulletins. They are readouts from these laboratories. The objective is to measure the precise impact of supply chain disruption on a contained Western-aligned economic model. It is a field test for inducing systemic paralysis. These proxy zones serve a critical function. They allow for the refinement of attack vectors. How much energy price manipulation, Source 2, is required to trigger a cascade of consumer credit defaults, Source 4? What level of sustained, low-grade kinetic attrition, Source 1, in an allied state transforms a NATO security asset into a terminal fiscal liability, Source 3? These are not political questions. They are mathematical equations being solved in real time. The strategic error is focusing on the fires in the periphery. These zones are a calculated diversion. Every asset deployed to stabilize these engineered crises is an asset not available to defend the core system's solvency. The gray zone is a tool for attrition, bleeding the target of liquidity and political will before the decisive economic strike is launched. The launch on warning protocol is not a choice. It is a mathematical function of time and distance. Once an adversary's missile launch is detected, a nation has minutes before impact. The doctrine dictates a retaliatory launch based on sensor data alone, before that data can be verified by detonation. It is a pre-calculated response to an existential threat, designed to guarantee mutually assured destruction by removing human hesitation from the final stages of the equation. This protocol has a systemic vulnerability. The fog of digital war is not about kinetic weapons. It is an attack on the integrity of information. An adversary does not need to launch a missile if they can blind the systems that would detect it. A sophisticated cyber attack can spoof incoming signals, or, more effectively, create a total sensor blackout. The commander is then left with a binary choice. Is this a system failure, or is this the silent precursor to a decapitation strike? In this scenario, the decision to launch is no longer purely military. It becomes fiscal. A nation already hemorrhaging capital to manage kinetic attrition overseas, as detailed by the Institute for the Study of War, and grappling with an energy-driven solvency crisis, cannot afford to absorb a first strike. CSIS analysis confirms that the cost of rebuilding after a successful nuclear attack is infinite. The system ceases to exist. Waiting for confirmation becomes an unaffordable luxury. This is the core of the asymmetric blueprint. Economic weakness, deliberately engineered, becomes the primary accelerant for nuclear escalation. The adversary exploits the launch-on-warning doctrine by creating a choice where the perceived economic cost of inaction outweighs the strategic risk of a preemptive launch based on incomplete data. The threshold for a launch decision paradoxically lowers as the nation's balance sheet deteriorates. They are not betting on a technical failure. They are betting on a fiscal panic. The calibration shot will not be kinetic. The adversary has already validated the West's diminishing capacity for kinetic attrition, as confirmed by Institute for the Study of War assessments. The next vector is systemic. Within the next 12 months, expect a coordinated, non-attributable shutdown of a critical data hub servicing either the Port of Long Beach or the Port of New York and New Jersey. This is not a simple blackout. It is a strategically sequenced attack on the digital infrastructure that underpins physical logistics and high-frequency trading. CSIS models indicate the primary objective is to test the attribution gap, the political and financial tolerance for an event that cannot be immediately or definitively sourced to a state actor. The economic paralysis will amplify pressures already identified by the Financial Times regarding consumer credit solvency and inject chaos into the global price war for energy. The event will be publicly framed as a cascading technical failure. It will be privately understood as a signal. It demonstrates the capability to turn a NATO security asset into an economic liability without firing a single shot. The adversary's objective is not destruction, but data, to precisely measure the delay between system failure and political response, thereby calibrating the financial breaking point of the American system. The shot will be fired to see if the target flinches,